So the biggest question, is equity funding right for you and your business? I'd start with a couple of bits here. First of all, I'd say the fundraising process is really, really difficult and it is not glamorous. So people kind of think that when something makes it onto TechCrunch, that the founder's going to, if they ever sat down with that founder, the founder would tell them, fundraising was the best experience of my life. It isn't. It's a long, arduous sales process. It's kissing a lot of frogs. It's a lot of project management. And typically I've seen a lot of founders on the day of completion and actually they're absolutely worn out by the process and all they want to do is get back into their business. So I think the first thing is do not kind of glamorize the fundraising process. And then the second bit is it is really, really difficult to both continue to scale your business and fundraise at the same time. So if you don't need to do both or you're not going to be successful with fundraising, then actually there is a lot of time and effort and energy that you could then kind of focus back into your business. So yeah, don't get sucked in by the headlines. Fundraising is not for everybody. On average, depending on which stats you believe, somewhere between 1 and 5 businesses that go out and attempt to do a fundraise are ultimately successful. So 100 businesses in a room that have all created their pitch deck, built a story, they've potentially got their data room together, they've reached out to investors, somewhere between 1 and 5 in that room will raise. So the other 95 to 99 will be unsuccessful and they will have burnt a significant amount of time having those conversations, doing that work ultimately to get to a no. And not just that they've burnt a lot of time, it's a lot of energy and a lot of kind of mental willpower, thinking that you've spent what could be 100, 200, 500 hours of kind of people time trying to go out and do a fundraise, and actually at the end of it you're in some ways the same position, which is not funded, but in an even worse position because you've not used that time on your business. So it's definitely not something that's right for everybody. In terms of who it is right for and who VCs are typically looking for, it's for businesses that are highly scalable, usually got quite low fixed costs and can generate, if you're a seed stage investor, at least 10 times return on investment, and if you're a pre-seed investor, probably at least 20 times, if not a little bit more. The amount of businesses that have got a product that's so unique in a market that's big enough and a team that can execute against that to really scale is quite limited. So yeah, if that's not you, if you're in a business where maybe you've got really high fixed costs, or you've got a small market, or you know how to grow it, but you might be able to grow 30-40% a year, that's probably going to be hard. Like VCs are looking for 100% plus year-on-year growth into kind of big markets and propositions that are relatively unique. So that's kind of the first bit of, can you actually go out and raise VC funding, and try and get a lot of feedback as early as you can. Speak to founders that are funded, speak to accelerators, speak to people like me and Rory Unfunded that see a lot of businesses, and just ask the question of, how does this benchmark against those other 99 businesses in that 100-person room? Do you really think I can be that 1 to 5 that can raise? And if not, why not? And I think there's nothing wrong with bootstrapping. There's a lot of businesses that they might get grant funding, they might get some kind of small early stage loans to kind of help with growth, and then ultimately at the end of that, they've either your grant capital, obviously a lot of the time you don't have to pay it back. If it's loans, maybe you have paid that back, and then by the end you've just got a business that you and or your co-founders own a percentage in. And actually, if there's 2 or 3 of you and you build a business that's worth £3 million, that's actually quite a material wealth creation event. The struggle that you've got and where it tends to fall down is if actually you can only build a £3 to £5 million business for whatever reason, and you've gone out and raised 10 million of venture cash, that then doesn't really kind of work with the model. So I would say kind of don't force it, and yeah, just ask yourself, can you raise? Then there's all the questions of, actually, do you want to raise, right? I know a lot of people that get into being a founder because they want to be their own boss, they want complete freedom, they don't want anyone to answer to. That isn't the reality often of working for a VC-backed business. You have got shareholders, you've probably got a board, you'll need a bit more structure around it. That kind of freedom of being a founder, you can often lose a little bit of that. Now, I'm not saying that it's like going back to get a job. It isn't. Your investors should be one step removed, but you'll always have a little bit less freedom once you've taken somebody else's cash and you've let them buy a percentage of your business than if it's completely owned by yourselves. So yeah, that's kind of another bit to think of. And then the third bit is, what do you want out of it at the end of the day? Because the majority of VC and angel-backed businesses will need to drive to some level of liquidity event. And more often than not always, but more often than not, that includes the founders selling their shares of the business as well. And actually, if that's not you, if you just want to build a lifestyle business that you can run for the next 20, 30 years, that will spit off some profits, you might want to think about it might be something that you want to hand down to your children, all that other stuff. That is not the model that VCs are backing. They want something that's going to eventually, where they're going to be able to get their cash out through the form of someone buying that business. So yeah, it's not, again, I know a lot of people that have been very successful in life by going out, building an owner-managed and owner-run business, and that's completely fine. Again, the disconnect comes between, if you want to build a business to hold forever and then you take on VC funding, actually those paths very rarely align.